Thank you very much. We're delighted and more than delighted, very pleased to have two wonderful, gifted, smart young people with us. You're very young. You're much younger than I am.
We're the same age.
No, well, you can say that, Bill. But
I'm much younger, John.
well, thank you, Janet. Janet Cohen and Bill Cohen, two wonderful people, two wonderful friends. Back in 2008, you pulled together a very moving conference. You brought together journalists, social scientists, people with civil rights background.
Like yourself.
Well, I was pleased to be there, to participate, to talk about, to discuss, to debate the issue of race and reconciliation in America. You have prepared and edited a beautiful book, Race, Reconciliation in America. Mm-hmm. It's an outstanding piece.
Thank you.
It says something about the distance we've come and the progress we've made, but we're not there yet.
No.
We have not laid down the burden of race, but we're on our way. And I would love for us to engage in a conversation the same way we did back in 2008. So, Janet, what about you, my dear?
Well, I'm just first of all honored to have you have a conversation with Bill and me. The contributions that you've made to this country, to humanity, are legend, and the contribution you made to our conference. When we had our first conference on race and reconciliation, people are still talking about it, the message you gave us. So thank you for that. We wanted to do race and reconciliation, have a conference on the discussion of race in America because it seems a tabooed subject. People don't like to talk about race, while in our respective groups we do. Black people talk about it all the time. I'm sure white people talk about it. But we never dialogue about it across the color line. And I was always aware of the discomfort that white people have in discussing race in mixed groups. And since I was aware of that, I thought it incumbent upon me, and Bill joined me, in making whites more comfortable to talk about it, to create an environment where they could leave their shame, if you will, and guilt, if you will, at the door, and we, people of color, could leave our blame at the door. And as you said, we had academicians, movie stars, civil rights leaders, great humanitarians coming to talk about this subject. And it came out in this book that Bill and I edited called Race and Reconciliation in America. And so that it's shortened for our website, we call it RARIA. It's an acronym of RARIA. And as I discovered when we got this acronym, that RARIA is a wonderful, beautiful group of islands, or mountains rather, in South America. So we're all elevating to that rarefied air as we discuss issues that are often taboo.
Janet, I want to come back to you in just a moment, and I want you to tell me something about your background, where you grew up, where you were born and where you grew up, and how do you become so committed and so dedicated to the issue of race and reconciliation. Bill, let me hear from you. Bill, first of all, I really want to thank you for your service. Yeah. Your service in Congress, in our government, Secretary of Defense, and all of the great work that you've done over the years.
Well, I've had a great
thank you for being my friend.
I've had a great opportunity, John. It was a remarkable period of time in my life to have spent some 28 years in elective office, and then to have the last 4 over at the Pentagon was really the culmination of everything I'd ever done in public service. I am interested in this subject matter for a variety of reasons, obviously because of Janet. But I was interested in these issues long before I met Janet. And I grew up in Maine, maybe the whitest state in America. But
it's a beautiful state.
It's a beautiful state.
It's a wonderful place. I visited Maine a few times.
And great people.
Great people.
And but there were very few black people in Maine, at least very few that I saw. And those who were in the community, handful of families, always lived on the other side of town. And the people said, well, they're okay as long as they, quote, stay in their place. And I never understood what staying in their place meant. But I became friends. I watched one of the basketball was very big, not big as Indiana, but it was very big. And I can recall in 1947, my dad started taking me when I was 4 years old, but in 1947 I went to a ball game the Bangor Rams were playing, and there was one black ball player, Bobby Nelson. And he's the one who really caught my attention because he was so exciting, and the things that he did on the court with just razzle-dazzle, the enthusiasm that he displayed caught my attention. And then I had the privilege just a few years later, when I was just 8 years later, I was playing on the Bangor Rams as one of the youngest players ever to start for the team. But I had him in mind. And then I had Bob Talbert, who was one of my classmates who was really such a gifted individual, and I became very close to him. And then through the basketball, because I would go out to the Dow Air Force Base, which is a Strategic Air Command base, and many, many black airmen, but most of the ones I saw were on the basketball court. And they allowed me to play with them. I was the only white person in the gym with them, and so I got to understand people on a personal level. And I think all of that contributed to my wanting to narrow the divide between blacks and whites in this country. I think the disparity has been so deep historically, the wretched history that we've had in this country and the legacies that still live on. And so having met Janet just a few years ago and fallen in love with her to deal with this issue as a partnership, the two of us trying to bring about a reconciliation in this great divide that is getting narrower and narrower, but still a long way to go, as you have pointed out. And I couldn't help but think of your role in this when you talked about you couldn't go to the library and borrow a book when you were a young boy. And you went back some years later and you were signing autographs for your book. And that tells you something about how far we've come.
Well, Bill, thank you so much. You know, we all have stories to tell, and your story is a very powerful story. And thank you for telling it. And we're going to share our stories and tell them over and over again to show the progress that we've made and how we tear down these barriers and these walls. Jen, I know that you were born in Indiana.
I was born in Indianapolis, Indiana.
Okay.
Great basketball state. I
Oh,
was
yeah.
born there in 1941,
Okay.
15 days
You're so
before
young.
the president, thank you, before the president declared this is a day that will live in infamy, shortly after Pearl Harbor had been struck and our country entered the war. It was the days of apartheid America. A lot of people don't like to say it that way. We want to say Jim Crow, segregated. But it was an apartheid America. I lived in restricted and segregated areas. My father fought in World War II, and he fought in Patton's army. And when he came home, his country repaid him with a seat on the back of the bus. But the beautiful thing about this country, though, John, is that I, the daughter of that colored soldier, could grow up and marry the Secretary of Defense. So, you know, we have a wonderful country. And I often say when I talk about race, I want to give my country some credit because I love her despite her faults and because of her promise and her progress.
I appreciate that. It is amazing to me, the country that we live in. It is such a wonderful place. We've made so much progress, but there's still a great deal of progress to be made.
A lot more to do.
Now, this conference took place in July '08, right?
July.
And that's before the election. Could the two of you, based on the conference, do you have just during the conference, do you have a sense that we were about to take this great leap?
I didn't. I know Mr. Obama was running and that he was a promising candidate. But in my wildest dreams, you have to think now, and John, you as well, we grew up in a different America than the America of today. The idea that we would ever have a black man as president of the United States was incredible to me. It was almost the same as thinking of having majority rule in South Africa and Mr. Mandela becoming free and becoming president of South Africa. These are two very remote possibilities in my mind. And the fact that he is president, I'm still pinching myself. And at the time we did this conference, of course, the campaign was going, and he was looking good in the polls.